You're watching WAC Hoops Live, brought to you by WAC Hoops Digest. Head on over to WACHoopsDigest.com for all your news and information regarding men's and women's basketball in the Western Athletic Conference. Be sure to follow WAC Hoops Digest on all our social media channels and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss an episode of WAC Hoops Live.
I should say we're unmuted now. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to WAC Hoops Live here from the UCCU Center in Orem, Utah. First WAC Hoops Live show of the 2022-23 season. Daryl Trujillo with me from you said it's a little cold in Southern California right now.
Yeah, it's about 60 degrees, overcast. It was raining this morning, but it looks like it's stopped for now.
Awesome. I'm here at the UCCU Center in Orem, like I said. Utah Valley women host Grand Canyon in the first game of this busy Thursday in the WAC opener for both teams. Tip is set for 2 p.m. Mountain on ESPN+. I've actually been here since about 10:30 this morning. Got here for Sam Houston men's basketball, their shoot-around. Then got kicked out of my own gym, my alma mater gym, because I wasn't able to be in the Utah Valley shoot-around. So I've been sitting in the media room just chilling right now. Bearcats and Utah Valley in the nightcap here at the UCCU Center, and a doubleheader here to open WAC play. Every school is going to have one of these doubleheaders, so I'm really excited about that. And Daryl, you will be at the CBU Event Center for UT Arlington women at CBU. That should be an interesting game that we'll talk about later. But how excited are you for the day?
Oh, yeah. This is almost like the start of the second season. It's like a second Christmas for basketball fans, right? The start of, opening night is like, Christmas Eve, I guess you could call it. And then, just a couple days after Christmas, it's like Christmas morning all over again.
That is very true. Very true. Now, I want to talk about, there was one game already that's been played, a WAC game already. Southern Utah was at New Mexico State last night, on the men's side. And New Mexico State got out to a 10-0 lead, but then Tevian Jones got hot for Southern Utah. And Cam Healy came off the bench and hit some threes. I'm just going to play a few highlights here as we're talking about them. As you can see, Tevian Jones, it's not in the screen right now. There it is. Deep three. He had 5 3-pointers in the first half, had 15 points there. Cam Healy here had a three as well. These guys can shoot, and they were playing with 7 players last night. A 12-5 run. Tevian Jones was a catalyst of. Technically, it was a 13-5 run that gave him an 18-17 lead, just under 10 minutes to play in the first half, and Southern Utah went on to win the ball game. They never trailed after that point. Like, it was impressive what they did down there in Las Cruces, and they're one of 4 WAC teams since January 1st, 2012 to win at the Pan Am Center. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a heck of a debut for Todd Simon and company to, jump on that list right out of the gate. I mean, New Mexico, let's face it, New Mexico State is not used to losing at home, especially the men's team over the last decade. So to jump on that list in their debut, shorthanded too, that's a really good sign for the T-Birds as they move forward in this inaugural WAC campaign.
Yeah, so Tevian Jones had 20 points in the win. The 79-75 win is actually closer than it really was because New Mexico State hit a couple buckets late. Southern Utah didn't want to foul, so that helped. But, the interesting thing was Southern Utah was playing with 7 scholarship players last night. They had 9 guys that dressed, and one of those 9 guys got hurt in the game, so he only played like a minute. I mean, this was a depleted team. And then Jason Spurgeon, their big guy, fouled out with over 4 minutes to play, and they finished without a big guy because Parsafala, the freshman center, wasn't there. It's just crazy how they were able to win a ball game. And Tevian Jones only had 5 points in the second half. So very, very excuse me. Sorry. Had very, very impressive win for Southern Utah. And people need to not sleep on the T-Birds. I think I told a lot of people that you can't sleep on this team because they are that good and they have that ability. And they have a player of the year candidate in Tevian Jones. So I mean, it's one of those things. And, we talked about this in the offseason too, Daryl. We talked about New Mexico State having an entirely new roster, a first-year head coach, that this wasn't going to be a year that they were going to roll. I know everybody had some Aggie fans had that high expectation when they signed all these guys, Xavier Pinson, DeShandre Washington, Issa Muhammad, and so were these top JUCO recruits as well. Quaye Gordon, who played in the SEC with Pinson, that there was this thing that New Mexico State was going to roll. Well, last night we saw a veteran team who's been together for a few years. Their high basketball IQ basically won that ball game over a team that hasn't played together for more than 6 months.
And that's what you'd expect. I mean, obviously, shorthanded Southern Utah going into the Pan Am and winning the way they did. Sure, I think a lot of us thought they were going to win that game, but I don't know that we thought that Southern Utah would lead for something on the order of 25 minutes. Is that what it ended up being?
Yeah, it was almost 26 minutes total. Pretty crazy. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. I mean, Larry Muniz, who wrote our preview of the ball game, he actually picked Southern Utah to win that game, so he was pretty spot on. The game got ugly though in the second half, like down the stretch. So many free throws. I was so annoyed that every time down the floor there was a whistle, and some of them were really ticky-tack on both ends, for both the Aggies and the T-Birds. I think it was Southern Utah had 2 guys foul out, if I remember right. I know Spurgeon did. I can't remember if Harrison Butler did or not. I know that New Mexico State had 2 players foul out, so I don't know. The over-under was 155.5, and they almost got there just by free throws alone down the stretch. Like, that's how crazy that was last night in Las Cruces. I want to just let the Aggie fans know. Listen, I said it from the outset, and you guys, some of you didn't believe me. It's going to take time for this team to gel and to figure things out. Greg Hires in his first year as Division I head coach, and no matter who he's coached under, where he's coached before, coaching in your first year at Division I is difficult and it's challenging, and you have things that you have to learn on the fly and you have to adjust to. The biggest thing is they're not getting any help outside of DeShandre Washington and Xavier Pinson. Plus, they don't really have a dominant big guy like they've had over the years with the Johnny McCants or Will McNair Jr. and so forth. You have to give them time. They're a good basketball team. The one thing is they have to distribute the basketball a little bit better. They have to shoot it better. And I'm not sure that Anthony Roy playing in just home games is going to help them, because you don't want to have different lineups for home games and road games. I think that's going to hurt the chemistry. That's just my personal opinion. I talked to a few other people last night about it. Even though Anthony Roy played well for the Aggies off the bench, it was still one of those things where, why are you playing a guy that can't play on the road right now? I don't know. We'll see. But, yeah, the thing is, give credit to Southern Utah. They are a good basketball team. We know that. They won the Big Sky regular season 2 years ago. They were at the top of the Big Sky again last year. They didn't win it. But had Tevin Jones not gotten hurt in the final, near the end of the regular season, they might have won the Big Sky tournament. So this is what the WAC is going to be this year. You're going to see these kind of wins. You're going to see these kinds of surprising losses. Maybe some people don't understand. That's why we do what we do at WAC Hoops Digest, to provide this information so people know how good this league is and how good these teams are.
Absolutely, and it's on both sides of the ball too. I think we're going to have a wild and wacky women's regular season.
Yeah, it's all going to get crazy. It's going to get. Yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna take a little break here for about 30 seconds. Then we're gonna come back with some special guests from the UCCU Center here in Orem as Utah Valley and GCU women basketball teams get ready for their WAC openers. Tip-off is at 2 p.m. Mountain on ESPN Plus. We'll be right back in about 30 seconds. Welcome back. Here we are to WAC Hoops Live from the UCCU Center in Orem on the campus of Utah Valley University, where the UVU women and GCU women will do battle about. The countdown is on, but it's about an hour, maybe a little 65 minutes or so away from tip-off here in the WAC opener for both the Lopes and the Wolverines. Lopes have lost 2 straight. The Wolverines coming off a non-conference win over Idaho to end their non-conference slate. And now we're going to talk some SFA men's basketball. We have a special guest. I'm trying to figure out where her partner in crime is, but we're going to bring her on here.
Hey,
Alex, I gotta get my overlay out so we can see you.
Here you are.
But where's your partner in crime?
I don't know. She just texted me. She's probably on her way.
Okay, well, we got Alex and Jacqueline will be here in just a minute. If you don't know, they are the co-hosts of the Pardon Me Alex podcast, talking all things Stephen F. Austin men's basketball. I want to put out a little disclaimer that I want to apologize because I haven't had them on. This is actually the first time I think I've had them on a podcast, and I've been razzing them about getting me on their podcast. So maybe next week when I'm in NAC, but we'll see.
Well, I'm pretty sure you were on our podcast first, and it was last season.
Holy cow, has it been that long? Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jeez. That is bad. And there's Jacqueline. We'll get the other co-host on.
There she is.
Ladies, we are so happy to have you on here this morning. I should say it's this afternoon. It's been a long morning, long day, whatever. But yeah, SFA men, they host Abilene Christian. Well, there's a lot of history between those two schools. And last year in NAC, the Jacks actually got the buzzer-beating win on Day-Day Hall's little jumper from the baseline. How excited are you for tonight's ball game in the Sawmill?
Excited or anxious?
It's a little bit of both for us. Yeah, it's excited to start conference play. Really, really pumped to have the Wildcats back in the Sawmill just because of our long-standing, I guess, I don't know, people call it a rivalry now. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, just a little nervous. We were talking about that yesterday in the podcast. Just a little anxious.
Yeah, very anxious. It's like, and yeah, I don't know if I would call it a rivalry per se, but I don't care. But
I couldn't hear my last words.
familiarity between the two of us, with all the SFA ties of Brett Tanner and Antonio Bostic, and then just the style that they play is so similar to the style that we play that it's always a really good matchup, no matter what.
Good cat.
Jacqueline loves her cat. She never, whenever she's on a podcast in her place, she always has a cat with her. What is that all about?
Well, I'm the crazy cat lady, and this one especially loves to join in. He likes his screen time.
Nice. Nice. I like it. So let's talk about this SFA team. I mentioned it in my comments on your podcast last week. The losses to Alcorn State and to Northwestern State are haunting SFA right now because obviously this new WAC resume seeding system that hurts to lose home games, especially to sub 200 net teams. But they've been playing with a depleted roster. I want to say that in the most nice way I possibly can. They're missing Jaleel Bobrin. They've missed Jalen Jackson Posey. Latrell Giselle has been hurt. I want to say every single Jack has been hurt at some point or another this year. Rothi Ware has been hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Day-Day Hall's dealing with a shoulder that's going to need surgery in the offseason. Robbie Armbruster's been dealing with plantar fascia. I'm trying to think if there's any Jacks that haven't been hurt. Derek Tizeno was hurt for a little bit. I don't want to jinx anybody, so I don't want to go any more names on this, but it is crazy how injury depleted they've been, and yet they're still going to enter WAC play with a winning record, and they still should win the ball game tonight against Abilene Christian. Is that wild to you guys?
Well, fingers crossed about that. Yeah.
And we've talked about that a lot on the podcast. We certainly don't like to use that as an excuse, but I think there have been 3 players on the team who haven't had some sort of injury throughout the season. At most points, even the players playing might be working through an injury or are recovered, but they've really hung in there and had really good attitudes about it, and they just keep trying to push through. So we're doing what we can.
Yeah. It's been a wild season. And like Jacqueline said, there's been pretty much, I would say, about anytime we have a starting lineup, there's at least 2 or 3 guys that are in the starting lineup who are probably battling an injury. And then, it may be a game where we have 8 people suited up and ready to go in. We may have 7, and who knows, depending on how the game goes, like recently, the last few games, we talked about this in the pod the other night, Day's been fouling out. And so then that's one less guy on the court. And so we just really have to, especially tonight, like Jacqueline mentioned earlier, they have such a similar play and defensive style like we do. They like to create disruption and chaos, and they love to create turnovers. And so definitely, if it's not a key to the game, it should be like the number one key to the game is to just hold on to the ball. Like, got to hold on to the ball, protect the ball, and beat them at their own game, basically.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest impacts it's had on us, which I don't think will come into play as much tonight against Abilene Christian, because they generally have a smaller lineup like we normally do, but we only have one actual true post player right now because of all the injuries, which is Nana, and he's, the last game that we recapped, he played 35 minutes, and we have Day down there playing the post, which we've talked about a lot. He does a great job of, considering his size, but that's not actually where we would prefer him to be either. So anytime we play a team with size, it's a big problem because Nana gets tired.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is that Abilene Christian doesn't have a lot of size. I mean,
yeah,
they got Joe Pleasant, and Arian Simmons, but they don't have like that dominant big man. So it's actually a good matchup, I feel like, for the Jacks tonight because ACU is not known for their size.
Yeah, tonight it will be helpful. It'll be more evenly matched. But anytime we play someone with size, that is a struggle.
Yeah, just trying to contain, because the last time we played them, obviously not in the Sawmill, but the last time was in WAC Vegas, and I mean trying to contain Cameron and Allen are just, they're also forces to be reckoned with. So I mean, trying to contain them is going to be critical for tonight as well. Another key to the game.
You talk about that WAC Vegas game. That was kind of wild. You guys have beaten them twice in the regular season.
Yeah.
And the third time was a charm, 76-62. It wasn't, I don't know, you guys were sitting courtside, but I don't think it felt like it was ever even close at the Orleans Arena. And maybe you can enlighten me on what you thought, but it didn't seem like it never felt like SFA got in the ball game. Let's just put it that way.
No.
We didn't feel that way either. But the thing is, like we said, since we're so similar with them, it's almost impossible to play them 3 times in one season and win all 3 for either one of us. It's just not. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they had our number that game, 100%. And you're right. We just honestly we called time of death (TOD) really early in that game. That's just it's not. Yeah, like Jacqueline said, it's just almost impossible to beat them 3 times in a row. It's just, we're so similar, and they know us like the back of their hand and vice versa. And so it's just really, really difficult. I mean, we have our boy, oh God, now I'm going to blank on his name. He used to play for us. Antonio Bostic. Yeah, he's on the coaching staff, and we love Antonio, but it's always a friendly rivalry whenever we play them. And we've had him on the podcast as well, and we enjoy talking with him and hanging out with him when he's not on the court. Yeah.
And he came on after we beat them too, so that was pretty good of him.
Nice.
That was pretty good of him. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, they're ranked 9th in the nation, 3rd in the conference of turnovers forced per game, and so I mean.
It's such a misleading stat, though. Like you can force as many turnovers as you want, but when you're giving up 70, 80 points a game, I don't know that that's a benefit.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this on my way to the UCCU Center today about how people love analytics, and it's like, but they don't tell the whole story. Like if you may get some extra shots and so forth, but if you can't have stops or you can't stop somebody, getting turnovers doesn't really matter because
it becomes a ratio at that point, and it's all relevant, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. We're here at the UCCU Center.
That's such a mouthful, Kyle.
It is a mouthful. I'm sorry. Here on the campus of Utah Valley University, we're talking with Jacqueline and Alex, who run the Pardon Me Alex podcast. You can find it on Facebook, on Twitter. They get pretty crazy in their podcast episodes when they're talking SFA men's basketball.
That's passionate, Kyle. That's passion, not crazy.
Okay, passion. That's the way we'll put it. They're more biased in their podcast than I am on mine because I could be talking Utah Valley basketball all day if I really wanted to, but I cover the Western Athletic Conference. So let's talk. There's one player I want to talk to you. I want to ask you about your thoughts on AJ Kajust. Is it Kajust? Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah.
Kajust,
He has been dynamite for the Jags during this whole injury-plagued non-conference slate. I mean, he hit the game winner. Oh my! Against Louisiana Tech. Sorry,
Yeah.
It seems so long ago that happened. Now that we're in WAC play, but
Yeah.
like he's been really good, and he shoots it really. The quickness is, I think, and athleticism are what get me, because he's not real big size-wise. You guys probably love watching him play ball. Maybe not necessarily when he turns the ball over at key moments in certain games, but like overall.
I don't feel like he's turned it over that many times. I don't really have a problem with that. We've talked about him at length, and I feel like he gets better every game. We love him even more. Like you said, he can handle the ball. He's so fast. I don't feel like there's anybody we've played yet who can stop him coming into the lane. He can shoot as well, and he takes good shots. He's always stacking up assists. He's great. We love him.
Yeah. Everybody calls him Juice for good reason because he brings the juice constantly. Like Jacqueline said, he is just fast. We talked about that the other day in our podcast. We talked about the game versus North American and Jackson State. And he is fast into that lane. I mean, there's some sequences where he's going coast to coast, and no one can stop him. Right to the rim, layup, done deal. And then the best part is he's a pretty decent outside shooter as well. I mean, when he has an open look, he's going to take it, and there's a really good chance it's going to go in too. I mean, so he's great. And you're right, Kyle. He's not big, like height wise, but when you see him up close, he's ripped. Like he's a strong dude. He's strong. Like you can tell our strength and conditioning coach has done some work.
He knows what he's doing. Every time we see their pictures at the beginning of the season, like showing from the beginning of the summer to then, every time I'm like, I need him to make me a workout and a meal plan. The results are wild. Yeah,
the transformations are nuts. So he might not be tall, but he can run people over easily. He's a pretty thick dude, like solid, I would say. So. Nice. Yeah. He's pretty solid. And I always talk about how he reminds me a lot of, he's like a mixture of like 3 or 4 players that we've had in the past. He reminds me of John Como, who we've had before as point, and we love Johnny. I mean, we love them all, but he reminds me a little bit of Nate Bain as well. And he reminds me of a little bit of David, and then also Trey Pickney. So yeah, he has a lot of we see a lot of past players in him. Not saying that he, watched their film or anything, but he just reminds us a lot of how they play, his style, his quickness. He's all over the court playing defense. I mean, his body on the line type, taking charges. I mean, he'll do it all. He's like a utility player in baseball. He'll do it all.
Well, he go ahead, Jax.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say also, like with the Nate correlation, I feel like he just performed so well under pressure.
Yeah.
Like in that La Tech game, it wasn't that I didn't think he could make the shot. I just thought he would get fouled and we wouldn't get the call. So I was so anxious. I was like, we're not going to be able to deal it with this because, just because he's small, and I figured he's going to get fouled and we're not going to get the call. He came through, so.
He did.
Well, he hit a 3 earlier, like a possession or 2 earlier that I don't know that Kyle Keller wanted him to take that shot.
The look on his
I think it tied the ball game, or it gave him a lead in that moment. Like you got to have excuse my language here, you got to have some stones in that moment on the road to take a shot like that. And then to get down the floor, I think it was within it was like 3.9 seconds. Like, it was really quick that he got down and hit that buzzer beater.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm excited to see what he can do. He's going to go up against a really good defensive guard today in Damian Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a fun matchup to watch at the Sawmill. Jacqueline, Alex, tell the fans where they can find you on your social medias. And, next week we'll be doing this from hopefully either the Sawmill or maybe another nice place in Nacogdoches when I'm down there on Wednesday.
Yeah, no, we're excited for you to come. Super pumped to welcome you to Nacogdoches and maybe take you out on the town a little bit. Yeah, our big town,
I'll be drinking water, that's for sure. My wife will not approve of me drinking any alcoholic beverages. So,
well, the brewery has several non-alcoholic options, so we got you covered.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
You'll be fine. So I think. Well, back to the first question. You can find us on, like I said, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a YouTube. We have a YouTube channel that our StreamYards also will go to as well. So you can always watch us later if you don't catch us live. You can also listen to us on any platform you can listen to podcasts on: Spotify, Apple, Google, Podbean, whatever. All the different platforms, Anchor, which is our home hosting site. So we are pretty available. I was going to wait for the buzzer.
I'm sorry, the arena, they're going crazy here with setting up the clock for this 2 p.m. tip-off, so I apologize.
It's okay. You're good. You're good. Yeah.
Anyways, thank you, ladies, for coming on. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back. I'm going to have Dallas Clifford on to talk some Utah Tech hoops again. Thanks, ladies, and we'll be back.
Thanks.
What's up, everybody? We're back here at the UCCU Center. About 47 minutes from tip-off here between GCU women and the Utah Valley women on the campus of Utah Valley University and the WAC opener for both teams. Now we're going to bring in, first, before I bring in our next guest, Daryl, what'd you think of finally having Alex and Jax on the podcast?
It's about
I shouldn't
time.
say podcast, live show.
It was about time. It was long overdue. And that you want to keep up with your SFA men. They're the ones to keep up with.
Yeah. I'm glad we got them on finally, and I'm looking forward to seeing them next week when I'm in East Texas for the SFA New Mexico State men's game, and then SFA Utah Tech women's basketball game at the Sawmill next Thursday. And with us is our special guest, Dallas Clifford, who's also a contributor to WAC Hoops Digest covering the Trailblazers. And he is do we want to say president of the Stampede?
That's it. That is the official title, is Stampede president over here.
There you go. A big one in the Burns Arena tonight, UTRGV at Utah Tech. I want to say the first one to 90 points tonight is going to win the ball game. Is that safe to say between these two teams?
I think so, man. The two high-powered offenses. I mean, I'll talk UTRGV first. I got, I think it's Justin Johnson.
Yep.
Dude is a scorer, man. That guy lights it up. But, I mean, we have our own guys here. Cam Gooden, the offense just in itself is going off right now. We saw it in that Lindenwood game. It was unreal, man.
Yeah, you have 3 of the top 6 scorers in the league right now going at it tonight between Will Johnston, or UTRGV guards, Will Johnston and Justin Johnson. Then you got Cam Gooden on the other side for the Trailblazers. But you also have an interesting matchup that I put in my preview this morning, my rapid recap preview on WACHoopsDigest.com. Tanner Christensen against Dima Zador, Idaho transfer versus a GCU transfer. That battle in the paint is because Tanner Christensen, let's be real, he's been really good for the Trailblazers.
Dude, he's been so good for us. It's been almost like a breath of fresh air for us here to have like a true big man. Like last year we had Hunter Schofield that he could play every position, to be honest with you. But having Tanner out there and then going against Dima Zador tonight, dude, that's going to be the marquee matchup in that game for sure.
Let's talk about Noah Gonzalez, the sophomore guard. He has finally figured out that shot that I think you and John Judkins and every other Trailblazer fan has kind of been waiting on. He's been really good lately. Talk about him and what he's going to be able to do tonight, because I'm sure that he's either going to guard Justin Johnson or he's going to guard Will Johnson. One of those two. I'm really excited to see this guard battle. But talk about Noah Gonzalez.
Noah, I'll tell you right now, Noah could end up being the best player that ever comes with this school, man. That shot, you were talking about that shot, we all have seen it. We all saw it last year before he had some kind of confidence issues, I think is what it ended up being. Dude, the confidence is there this year. I think I have it. He's shooting 47% from three right now, and it's unreal. And then on the defensive side, I don't want to say he's undersized, but he plays much bigger than he actually is.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the last 4 games that the Trailblazers have played. Noah Gonzalez went 5 for 8 from three-point land against Chapman, 1 for 2 from three-point land against Masters. He didn't play, I don't know, he played 27 minutes, but still, that was a non-D1 game. So Westmont saying those 3 games are non-D1s, but he was 3 of 4. Then in the final non-conference D1 game, he was 5 of 6 from distance. And at Utah State, he had 15 against the Aggies. If they get that shot, if that stays consistent, that just gives another scoring option, because you still got Denzel Leader, you've got Frank Stain, you've got Isaiah Pope, and Tanner Christensen, who is a double-double just waiting to happen any night. I just feel like this is a different Utah Tech team that's, because their November and early December were so brutal, they're battle tested. They got the rest that they needed down the stretch here in December, and they get to open up with a home game. My only concern is, Dallas, and maybe you'll say something about this, they cannot get caught looking ahead tonight because they have a huge game on Saturday. So it's kind of a trap WAC opener for them.
Kyle, I thought the same thing, man. This whole week leading up to this, I thought, man, we can't overlook to UVU. Like, we can't overlook it all. And it's one of those games that, like you said, it's a trap game. And not even saying UTRGV is a bad team, but like a big rivalry game, especially coming off last rivalry game against UVU. It's a huge, huge game tonight to really like focus in. I said it 2 weeks ago, or whenever that Lindenwood game was. I thought that was super important. I thought it was another like kind of trap game like that going into the holiday. Same type of thing coming off the holiday. I really think it could be a trap game, but Juddy, he's not going to let his guys fall into a trap like that. They're going to play really well.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Take care of business first, because as we know, with this WAC resume seating system, winning at home is crucial, because you do not want to take – like, that's the big thing tonight with UTRGV when considering that UTRGV has a sub 250 net ranking, a home loss would be killer for a Utah Tech team that sits at 6 right now in the WAC resume seating system. They're actually in the positive in the point value. Got to take care of business at home. But this is a little different UTRGV squad, I think, than we've seen in the last couple of years. They have size. They have some really good guards, obviously, in Justin Johnson and Will Johnston. And they have some depth. So it'll be interesting to see the chess match. So like I said, I feel like the first one to 90 will win the ball game tonight, because it's going to be a high-scoring affair, because both teams get up and down the floor. Both teams shoot it well. I think you're going to be in for a treat tonight at the Burns Arena. Let's put it that way. Let's talk about the women. Utah Tech women are I just had it up. They're 8-3 right now.
Yeah.
But they're hurting. Like we've been texting about this a little bit. Maddie and Macy Warren. Sorry, they're 8-5 right now. They're hurting. That's the men's. Excuse me.
Yeah, 8-3. You're right there.
8-3. These websites are so screwy sometimes, so I apologize. But yeah, 8-3. The Trailblazer women. They're coming off a win over Lindenwood to end their non-conference slate. But like I said, they're without Maddie and Macy Warren, which that kind of hurts because those two could score and added more scoring options. I think one person to keep an eye on tonight in the WAC opener, I don't feel like Emily Isaacson's gotten going yet, has gotten in rhythm yet. That's a better way of putting that. What do you think, Dallas?
That's what we've been talking about, man. We especially I'll go back to that Macy. Macy was number 2 in the conference in scoring. She's 18.8 points per game. I want to say rebounding, she was top 25. Assists, she was top 10. Like she was right there with Brianna Gillen as Player of the Year candidate. I honestly think that. So losing her, huge loss. We saw that in the Weber State game. The offense was kind of slow. The Jacksonville State game, that loss, the offense was slow, and then it kind of picked back up in that Lindenwood game. And I think the main difference in that Lindenwood game was Emily Isaacson kind of found her stroke a little bit. Amber Karchner was a big part of that. But like you said, Emily hasn't found her stride yet. Once she does, I'm not going to say it's going to fill that hole completely, but it'll fill that hole a little bit, at least at Macy will.
Yeah, so she's hit, let's see, in her last, Emily Isaacson she had 8 points in the win over Air Force, 16 in the win over Weber State. Wait, was that a win? I can't remember. I thought that was
It was, yeah. That Weber State was a win.
Yeah, 69-65 over Weber State. That was a come-from-behind win, if I remember right. I remember watching that game in the second half, and it was a big turn of events there. And then in the loss to Jacksonville State, she only had 3 points. And then in the final non-conference game, she had 11. So she's going to have to fill that role. Like you said, Macy Warren was averaging 18.9 points per game before she went down with an ACL injury, which is crazy because both of the Warren sisters have ACL injuries. So maybe mom and pop need to take a look into those knees and figure that out, I think. Tough times for JD Gustin. But, the women's basketball team, it feels like after 2 years and now that both teams are eligible for the WAC tournament, it feels like something's changing in St. George a little bit. There's more investment. They're getting the right people in. They're recruiting a little differently. I know J.D. Gustin loves the state of Utah, which Brianna Gillen's from the state of Utah. Emily Isaacson's from the state of Utah. The Warren sisters are from the state of Utah. Amber Karchner's from the state of Utah. Like, it's almost like the whole roster is from the state of Utah. But either way, do you feel that vibe that something is just kind of changing now that you're in year 3 of the transition period? Get more investment, the new football, press box, the upgrades, it feels like there's a new vibe in St. George.
There's a totally new vibe, and it started with the fall sports this year. You saw our fall sports take a complete, I won't even say a step, it was a leap forward in what we were doing. And now we're seeing it basketball-wise. Especially with our women's team. I saw something on Twitter the other day. I think you shared it with us, the number 3 most improved teams from last year, something like that. And our men's team is sticking right there with them. Our men's team played probably the toughest conference schedule I've seen for a mid-major, at least on the West Coast. And then our women's team handled their business as well as anybody could have. So yeah, like you said, there's a whole new vibe here. Conference season is a whole different thing now that we can actually compete for a conference tournament, conference title. It's a different vibe. It's fun. It's fun to be in St. George right now.
The best part is that neither the women or the men know when their season ends. They have that opportunity to end it whenever they want it to end, especially with the fact that they're both eligible for WAC Vegas, which if both of them get to the WAC tournament, there's going to be quite, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know what the word is, like a stampede into Las Vegas. Let's put it that way. Is that the best way to put it?
Hey, I love that. We'll stampede WAC Vegas. I love it.
Awesome.
I'm coining that term. We're putting that down.
Awesome. Well, what is it? It's 7 p.m. tip-off tonight, right, for the men in the Burns Arena, UTRGV, in town, Trailblazers, Vaqueros. Like I said, 7 p.m. Mountain Time on ESPN+. Dallas will be sitting front row right behind the UTRGV basket and be going – I don't want to say sitting. He'll be standing the entire game. We've seen some great photos from some of those games by Brianna Girato. And be on the lookout. We're going to have a podcast each week. Utah Tech. I'm not going to release the name yet because the name is awesome. Some people voted on it, so yeah. But we're gonna have fun with it. We're gonna talk some Trailblazer hoops and so forth each week after busy weekends. Trailblazers got to take care of business tonight against UTRGV in what should be a fun game before a big time matchup on Saturday here in Orem. We'll talk about that on another WAC Hoops Live on Saturday. But Dallas, enjoy the game tonight. Everybody, you see his Twitter handle there. Follow him at DalCliff. And we'll be back in just a few moments.
Appreciate you guys. See you.
All right, welcome back. Daryl, you need to say stuff, or you need to give some facial expressions during those interviews. That was good stuff from Dallas Clifford on Utah Tech, both the men and the women, so I'm very excited about that. Now we're going to talk about this game here this afternoon, Utah Valley, Grand Canyon women's basketball. It's an intriguing matchup because we mentioned that GCU has lost 2 straight, and it's been a lot of the second half issue where they haven't been able, against Idaho, they weren't able to close out that game. At UC Irvine, you were there, and they just fell. It was almost like they fell apart defensively, especially in the second half in Irvine last week.
Yeah, UCI got going quick out of the gate, out of the intermission, outscored the Lopes. It was 22-5. But I think the thing that was more concerning to me was they held the Lopes much improved offense for much of the year to 5 total second half field goals. And even, that being said, they still had an opportunity late, but the damage was done in that third quarter. You're just not going to come back from 22-5 to win a lot of games. Yeah,
and I'm very interested to see what happens here today and how they respond, because you don't want to start off WAC play with what this would essentially be a horrible loss for GCU women if they were to lose here at the UCCU Center today, especially with this new WAC resume seating system. Because let's face it, I'm a UVU alum, and it hurts me to say this. The UVU women haven't been great. They picked up their first Division I win over Idaho last week, 10 non-conference play. But it's been a struggle, especially offensively. And we know how GCU likes to get after it defensively. The thing is, this is a chance for Utah Valley. Can they pull it off? What do you think here, Daryl? Because we haven't really seen Utah Valley put together a full game, at least offensively. I mean, they lost Josie Williams. They lost Maria Carvalho. They lost Madison Grange. They lost Megan Jensen, who's at Southern Utah now. They lost everybody that was their key scorers. Shea Fano has been really good. Kayla Anderson was out for the season with that knee injury right before it all started. This is just a depleted Utah Valley team, a young Utah Valley team going up against a somewhat experienced GCU squad who likes to turn it over, likes to get after it and push the pace and tempo. It's a very interesting game between two teams of very different styles of play.
I would almost say it's a trap game for the Lopes. They've split the 2 prior meetings at the UCCU Center over Molly Miller's first 2 years. They've been both really good games. But like you said, this is a totally new Utah Valley roster. And I think the thing for the Wolverines is they may have beaten Idaho, and that's a really good that'll be a really good win for the Wolverines because Idaho was picked, I think, 3rd in the Big Sky. But I don't know that we've seen this Utah Valley team play their best 40 minutes. I think GCU put together as good a 40 minutes as you could have put together against Arizona State, and that's kind of their benchmark performance. But the biggest thing for me is I want to see the Lopes offense get back on track because if you struggle to score in Orem at the UCCU Center, you're going to struggle against SFA, who visits ECU Arena a week from Saturday. You're going to struggle against CBU, who visits ECU Arena this Saturday on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I'm like you. I agree that they cannot get caught looking ahead because they host CBU on Saturday in Phoenix on New Year's Eve. So like you said, like talking about that Utah Tech game, it's kind of a trap game because of who GCU hosts in their WAC, home opener on Saturday. Excuse me. It'll be interesting to see. The one thing that concerns me is looking over Utah Valley. They have not scored more than 60 points. They scored 60 points or more one time this year. That was against a non-D1 in a 76-72 home win over Northwest Nazarene. So if the Wolverines can get to 60 points, maybe they can win. But I'm very interested to see how slow Dan Nielsen takes the pace here today, or if he tells his girls, let's go, let's play, let's get up tempo. I'm very interested to see how that plays. It tips off in about 28 minutes here at the UCCU Center. Daryl, let's talk about some other women's games. We'll talk about a couple more men's games later. We'll have another WAC Hoops Live in between this women's games and the start of the men's games this afternoon. I'll be here at the UCCU Center all day. But let's talk about some of these other women's basketball games. We got Abilene Christian at Tarleton. So two teams right next door to each other in West Texas. Should be an interesting, battle between Misty Wilson's Texans and Julie Goodenough's Wildcats. The Wildcats have been playing pretty well lately. Tarleton hasn't, I believe you mentioned it, Tarleton hasn't lost a home game this season. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. They have played a few non-D1s, but the one really good challenge they had against College of Charleston, they won that game by 10, and that was a Colonial Athletic Association semifinalist from a year ago. And it's been a struggle on the road for ACU this year. They're 0-4. I believe in one of those games they did not have Bella Earl. I believe it was the UNM game. But those 4 losses were by a combined 36 points. So the Wildcats have been right there. They just got to break through at some point. And in order to be in that top, third of the conference, you're going to have to win 2, 3, 4, 5 road games.
Yeah, exactly. And road wins will be huge in this new seeding system, as we've seen throughout this, non-conference slate. In the other game, Jody Adams, it's her birthday. Happy birthday, Jody Adams, New Mexico State women's basketball head coach. Hopefully, I guess for your Aggies and for yourself, it's a good one. But you got a challenge here as you head to South Texas, take on UTRGV. Lane Lord's crew has been pretty good. Ayanna Dorsey is one of the WAC Player of the Year candidates right now. This is an interesting matchup because New Mexico State, new head coach, somewhat of a new roster. UTRGV, again, a veteran squad. I'm intrigued by this matchup against two teams that have some nice wins in the non-conference slate, especially UTRGV on the road. But this is an intriguing matchup for me down there at UTRGV Fieldhouse.
I'm right there with you, Kyle. And for the Aggies, it's a question of if it's a close game in the fourth, how will they do? They've been in a bunch of close games this year. I think there's something like 3-4 in games decided by 10 points or less, which is the same issue they had last year under Brooke Atkinson on a much larger scale. I remember the blown 19-point lead at Abilene Christian.
Yep.
Is the first thing that comes to mind in that case. Jody Adams has them playing much better, but I still need to see that they can finish games. And they lost by 1 to UTEP. They lost by 1 to UNM. Really nice win over the University of San Diego in San Diego. This is a team that can, beat you on the road if they play well. And so don't look past the Aggies, ladies and gentlemen, despite the struggles of last year. This is a really solid team that Jody Adams has inherited from Brooke Atkinson. I just think they needed to tweak a couple things, maybe a new voice in the locker room, and here we go.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out in her first WAC game as head coach, Jody Adams, on her birthday in Edinburgh at the UTRGV Fieldhouse. Let's talk about winless Seattle U. at Sam Houston. That tip-off is at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. I feel like the Redhawks have been close, but they just can't get close enough with the young group that Susie Barkham has. I mean, it's extremely young, a lot of inexperience there. Talia Clark's been really good. I don't know that they're going to get over the hump today at Sam Houston. I think it depends on which Sam Houston women's basketball team we get. Is it a team that went and beat TCU, or is it the team that lost to a non-D1? Raven Justice, done a great job. It's just an intriguing matchup simply because of those things. Seattle U's winless, and Sam Houston has kind of been a mixed bag of results, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it has been a mixed bag from the Bearcats. I mean, you look at their results, they've hung with some SEC and some AAC teams. They beat TCU in Dallas. You mentioned that earlier. But then they go home and lose that game by, 1 point to St. Mary's. For Seattle U, they're 0-10, but they've been in 7 of those 10 games have been by 10 losses by 10 points or less. So I don't know why, but I have the feeling that once they break through, it's gonna rain wins for them. I don't know why, but if you've been in that many close games in the non-conference, once you get that taste of winning, I think it's going to open.
Yeah, and I'm very interested to see how it plays out, because if you let a team like that hang around, confidence builds, and maybe they knock down a shot that finally gives them a lead, and then it's a different ball game because teams are able. We'll see how it's managed. I find it interesting that this game is still on, considering all the issues that we've had with travel, and that Seattle had to go clear across the country to Sam Houston to start off. But we're going to talk about another one where a team had to go basically clear across the country to go to their WAC opener in UT Arlington at CBU. That tip-off is later this evening. Daryl, you'll be there at the CBU Event Center for it. This is an interesting matchup. You got a CBU team that 2 years ago went undefeated, won the WAC regular season and the WAC tournament titles. Their only loss was in the women's NIT. They weren't eligible for the NCAA tournament. Last year, they had some mixed results, while UT Arlington, in their final year in the Sun Belt, won the Sun Belt Conference title, have a Player of the Year in Star Jacobs. Sharika Wright against Jared Olson, who is I think it's the second all-time wins leader at CBU. If I remember the graphic I saw the other day, it's an intriguing matchup because we know UT Arlington played an extremely difficult non-conference slate. CBU, I don't know if they're going to have Trinity San Antonio tonight. That would be a big piece that they would love to have in their WAC opener. What are you looking forward to in this game?
This is going to be a game where I want to see which offense gets on track first. Do we get the UT Arlington offense that struggled and scored, 8 points in the first quarter against Arizona? Do we get the CBU offense that just put up 69 against Western Kentucky? Or do we get that CBU offense that falls behind early, still manages to hang around, but just can't get over the top? The Lancers, in their last 5 games without Trinity San Antonio, have been 2-3. They do have a really good win over UCSB at home, who was picked second in the women's Big West polling behind Hawaii. But they've been in every game. They just have to find the scoring to be able to win a lot of those. And for UTA, the expectations, we had high expectations for them at the start of the year. I believe we voted them second in the coaches' media polls, second or third, somewhere in that area. But it's been kind of you alluded to that tough non-conference schedule at 6-6. It's been a mixed bag of results, though, with the Lady Mavs. I mean, they had to go and rally for a 3-point win at Lamar. They had to rally for a non-D1 win against A&M Commerce or A&M Texarkana. And then what was it in the exhibition? I think they got a scare from a non-D1.
Yeah, I remember we were texting about that and how, we were there were some things that concerned us about it, and I think some of those concerns have been valid so far through their non-conference. The free throw shooting and the rebounding has been a big issue. It's just interesting how those concerns have validated themselves from what we were, because we don't like to put a lot of stock in exhibition games. Those games are, but in this case, there's some stock to be put, from those concerns we had in that exhibition win where they escaped. I believe it was the Texas Women's University exhibition game.
Right.
So yeah, it'll be very interesting. I believe that's a 7 p.m. Pacific tip-off. Is that
That's a
sound
6.
about right?
That's a 6.
6 p.m. Pacific. Let's check it out here. Yeah, 6 p.m. Pacific time tip-off on ESPN Plus. Like I said, Daryl will be there. Follow him. Daryl, share your Twitter so that they can follow you on Twitter for updates in that ball game.
I'll be. I'm on Twitter at Daryl_golfer. That's DERRYL_golfer.
All right, so make sure you follow him for those updates. Guys, we appreciate you tuning into the first WAC Hoops live broadcast of the 2022-23 season. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss all of these WAC Hoops live shows. We'll be bringing them from around arenas in the Western Athletic Conference. This week, I'm at Utah Valley in the UCCU Center. Next Wednesday, hopefully, I'll possibly be at the Sawmill or we'll be at the Fredonia Brewery in Nacogdoches with the Part Me Alex girls and a couple other special guests to preview SFA in New Mexico State next Wednesday night. Then Thursday, I'll be at the Sawmill. I'll be previewing SFA women's basketball against Utah Tech. And then that's next Saturday, we'll be in Huntsville for the Sam Houston men and women doubleheader there from Johnson Coliseum. So for Daryl, for myself, everybody, we'll be back in between this afternoon tip-off to preview the men's games that we haven't previewed. Obviously, CBU at GCU, UT Arlington at Tarleton, and then the big one, Sam Houston at Utah Valley in the nightcap. It's a busy night, Thursday night of WAC Hoops. Looking forward to it. Daryl, any last words as we close out this live broadcast?
No, I'm excited to get going here. And like you said, it's about 15 minutes to tip between GCU and Utah Valley on the women's side. If you can get to ESPN Plus, let's bump those views up and see if we can't get a women's game or two on the over-the-air platforms this year.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, remember to follow WAC Hoops Digest on social media and enjoy, your conference openers. As we've seen, it's going to get crazy. Southern Utah beat New Mexico State last night. Just one of four WAC teams to beat the Aggies at the Pan Am Center. Crazy times ahead as we get into the new year. WAC openers tonight on Thursday begin right now. Well, begin in about 15 minutes with Utah Valley and GCU here at the UCCU Center. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Head on over to WACHoopsDigest.com for all your news and information regarding men's and women's basketball in the Western Athletic Conference. Be sure to follow WAC Hoops Digest on all our social media channels and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss an episode of WAC Hoops Live.